Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're taking a magnifying glass to something you've probably done hundreds of times in your life, the jumping jack. But we aren't just talking about a simple gym warm-up here. No, in this explainer, which Dr. Christophe Delong at Kinexa present, we're going to put this everyday movement under a temporal microscope, because what looks like a basic jump is, in reality, a mind-blowing biomechanical symphony happening right inside your shoes.
1.5 seconds. That is the absolute maximum time a full jumping jack cycle takes, between 1.2 and 1.5 seconds, to be exact. In that tiny blink of an eye, your body mobilizes 26 bones, 33 joints, over 100 muscles and ligaments, and literally millions of neuronal calculations. To really grasp this feat of biological engineering, we've got to slow time way down.
Look at this macro view. From the outside, the whole action looks fluid and effortless, right? But on a microscopic scale, your foot, which is an absolute masterpiece of nature, by the way, is managing forces up to 250% of your body weight. It has to absorb these violent shocks without shattering and then instantly launch you back into the air. It's this constant balancing act between destructive power and elastic grace.
So, to make sure we don't miss a beat of this split-second journey, here's our flight path. First, preparation and neuronal cascade. Second, descent and explosive takeoff. Third, aerial phase and anticipation. Fourth, landing and shock absorption. And finally, stabilization and energy recycling. Let's get into it.
Phase 1. Preparation and neuronal cascade. What's happening right before the jump? Let's ground ourselves in that absolute stillness, that split millisecond of calm before the storm hits.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the hyper-fast nervous countdown that's kicking off. While you're just standing there, your weight evenly split, your nervous system is already going into overdrive. 100 milliseconds before you even twitch, your premotor cortex has the whole sequence planned out. At 80 milliseconds, your cerebellum is calculating balance. At 60, the basal ganglia initiate the motor pattern. Then, the primary motor cortex fires the final order down to your spinal cord just 30 milliseconds before the action starts.
All of this frantic activity creates what's called a feed-forward loop. Basically, your brain knows an impact is coming, so it pre-activates your muscles, like your calf's soleus muscle, up to 35% just to stiffen your plantar arch in advance. It's exactly like clenching your jaw before you take a punch. Your body is literally armor-plating its structures before takeoff. Moving on to Phase 2, descent and explosive takeoff. The countdown is done, and the body drops just 5 to 8 tiny centimeters. Why? To store up some absolutely crucial elastic energy.
This takeoff doesn't just happen at random. It follows a perfect proximal to distal kinetic chain, meaning it travels top to bottom. Your glutes fire first at 0.25 seconds. Then, 10 to 20 milliseconds later, the quads take over, followed by the calves, and finally, the tiny intrinsic muscles in your foot. Each part hands off its kinetic energy to the next, amplifying the speed as this wave crashes down your leg to your toes.
2,500 newtons. Just think about that number. That is the crushing force crashing down onto your Achilles tendon during this propulsion. It's basically 3 to 4 times your body weight concentrated on a single fibrous cable. It really spotlights the extreme physical limits our biology can handle without just snapping in half. This is where the explosion hits its peak, and the data is just staggering. In a mere 0.05 seconds, your ankle extends with an angular acceleration of 12,000 degrees per second squared. Your calf activation maxes out at 100%, generating this colossal power to rip you off the floor, leaving only the very tip of your big toe touching the ground at the very end.
And this brilliantly illustrates how our anatomy adapts on the fly. To manage that massive force without collapsing, your foot uses something called the windlass mechanism. By extending your toes 20 to 30 degrees, your plantar fascia literally winds around your foot bones, shortening your foot by 6 to 8 millimeters. This microscopic architectural shift turns your flexible foot into an ultra-rigid, highly efficient lever. Phase 3, aerial phase and anticipation. We are now weightless, right between 0.3 and 0.7 seconds into our cycle. Gravity briefly takes the wheel here, but internally, the work is far from over.
You've just launched at over 2 meters per second, hitting a max height of maybe 10 to 15 centimeters. Mid-air, there's a massive sensory drop-off. Muscle activation plummets from 100% down to 20% in the blink of an eye. But during this split second of calm, your brain is actually using your inner ear, your vestibular system, to calculate the exact microsecond you're going to slam back into the floor.
The contrast here is wild. Mid-air, your tendon tension drops from 2,000 newtons to under 50. They're basically relaxing. But the second you start falling, your brain sounds the alarm. About 150 to 200 milliseconds before landing, it triggers an intense anticipatory bracing. Your muscle rigidity spikes by 200 to 300% to prep for the inevitable shock of gravity.
Phase 4, landing and shock absorption. This is the explosive climax of the movement. We are exactly 0.7 seconds in, the very instant the skin on your feet hits the floor.
The impact is brutal. A vertical force hitting up to 300% of your body weight smashes into you in just 20 to 30 milliseconds. To survive this, the fat pads in your heels compress by nearly half, acting like biological airbags. Your calves are doing a maximal eccentric contraction, meaning they're generating massive force while actively stretching. It's incredibly taxing, but absolutely vital for absorbing that gravitational energy.
Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds on a neurological level the instant your skin touches down. Microscopic organic sensors immediately light up. On the left, Meissner corpuscles detect the skin deforming. On the right, Pacini corpuscles, which look kind of like an onion, detect the violent vibrations of the shock.
And these sensors operate at speeds that are hard to wrap your head around. Meissner corpuscles fire at up to 400 Hz, while Pacini corpuscles literally detonate at up to 600 Hz. All this vibration data races up to your spinal cord in just 10 to 15 milliseconds, tweaking your muscles in real time so your joints don't just buckle under the weight.
Phase 5, stabilization and energy recycling. We've reached the final chronological step. Here, the body performs a literal thermodynamic miracle. It doesn't just absorb the shock energy, it recycles it.
So the crucial point is the elasticity of your tissues. Your Achilles tendon and plantar aponeurosis were stretched to the max during landing. Now, like giant rubber bands being let go, they snap back. The Achilles tendon returns 90% of that stored energy, and the plantar aponeurosis gives back 85%.
45. Why does this matter? Well, 45% is the total amount of muscular energy you just saved. Without these biological springs returning all that dangerous force they absorbed, the muscular effort required to jump again would go through the roof. You'd be instantly, massively fatigued. This recycling is exactly why you can do 30 jumping jacks without collapsing.
Basically, in less than 50 milliseconds, your foot transforms from a flexible shock absorber back into a rigid lever. It seamlessly shifts from an eccentric stretch that caught your fall to a concentric shortening that bounces you right back up, resetting the entire architecture for the next jump. The 1.5-second loop is closed and it all starts over.
So, next time you perform a simple jumping jack, will you feel the millions of microsecond calculations powering your biological supercomputer? That brings us to the end of our explainer. The engineering hidden just under your skin is dizzyingly sophisticated. Keep that in mind next time you're warming up. Thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.